Hi there and welcome to Racing Shocks Australia. In today's video we'd like to showcase another brand that we're the Australian sales and service distributor for, Motion Control Suspension. Again, these shocks are manufactured in the USA. They've been around for well over 10 years. They've got a really big following with Porsche and BMW guys. What led me to MCS was the way they actually interacted with their customer and really provided a lot of customer interaction, which is, I think, is really important when you purchase, especially like shocks that you're going to use for motorsport, and you need that additional assistance in terms of setup or even just have a chat about your car, how the system works. They're really big in that communication with their customers. The other thing is that they manufacture struts specific for motorsport as well, which there is a lot of strut manufacturers out there, but there are also a lot of cheap versions. So today we'd like to showcase a system that we've created for a customer for his Ford Mustang that he competes in Tarmac Rally events and some circuit racing. So about 12 months ago we set up a Ford Falcon FG for a customer. It was a street and track car. The feedback we got was really positive. He said the support the car had in cornering was so much more powerful and much better than the aftermarket shocks he had fitted to the car. But the actual ride quality on the street was actually a lot better as well. And that's all down to the internal design and the efficiency of the MCS product. So this is an example of what of a steel body strut leg from Motion Control Suspension. So the important thing when you're talking strut legs, you can see here the brackets actually welded to the actual outer body. When the actual struts bolted to the hub, MCS manufacture the strut out of steel, and the reason for that is to do with strength and torsion deflection of the suspension. If you've got like the FG Falcon where the actual strut mounts to the actual lower control arm through a bush, then it can be an aluminium body. But for the purpose of today's video, this is the strut that we're going to showcase. So you can see here the steel body strut, flanges are welded onto the outer body. We've got some more brackets here to mount the actual anti-roll bar link. Now you'll see we've got two, and the purpose for that is that basically if you had one of these damaged for whatever reason, you don't need to carry too much stock, or for whatever reason you've got to swap them side to side. These brackets are basically symmetrical. You can put this strut on the left or right front, it doesn't matter at all. So the features, because it's all steel body, it's actually quite thick tube, but it's actually quite light still compared to a lot of OEM stuff. You've got a 22mm shaft. That's one of the biggest shafts out there. Up here, you've usually got like a green knob on here. So this top adjuster here will adjust the rebound. So this system here is a three-way. I'll explain some other features shortly. But basically, the rebound adjustment it's got about 18 clicks, and you get a very large range of adjustment with that, which is another feature with the MCS stuff. A lot of the cheap stuff out there, it's not repeatable or it doesn't really have the range. So you can see here the body here is threaded, so you can adjust the ride height. The actual spring seats come with the actual units, and they're available in 2.25, 2.5 ID or 60mm. They are a proper gas monotube strut. So at the bottom here you've got a hose. Now on all hose fittings, they are what they call like a banjo style swivel fitting. So the hose won't leak, but the hose can freely move, so it doesn't get jammed during suspension travel. And by having this sort of system, you get a nice flow of oil going from the strut body into the hose, into the canister. If I bring up the other end of the strut, so you can see it's got the same swivel banjo fitting there. So it's this is the canister body here, and here you've got two forms of adjustment. The top one's the low speed, the bottom one is the high speed. So again, you get quite a large range of adjustment in both low speed and high speed ranges. At the end there, you've got the gas Schrader valve. So important feature with strut or shock systems that have got a canister, especially when you've got a large diameter shaft, the actual gas pressure is really important as a fine tuning tool, especially in road racing. So in road racing, if you've got a bumpy track and you need to run like a relatively soft setup, the actual gas pressure in the actual canister can be used as a fine tuning tool, and on these systems can be run as low as 85 psi. When you go to a fast flowing track with a whole lot of high speed corners and the actual track surface is smooth, you can actually increase the gas pressure up to 280 psi. Effectively, that gives you a lifting force, which is like similar to putting a stiffer spring in it. It's on some shocks it's not that effective. On the MCS brand, it is very effective. So typically, the gas pressure is more used to stop cavitation, but the internal design of the actual shock and the efficiency of the internal design that reduces pressure drop across the piston when it changes direction. Because of that, it's really efficient. You don't need to run a hell of a lot of gas pressure. Another feature you might just have seen here, we've got some dry brakes fitted to the actual canister hose that joins the canister to the strut body. So the reason we do this, it's an option on systems. The reason we do it is often car owners don't want to cut a big hole through their tyre wheel or through the chassis to mount the actual canister under the bonnet. So what MCS do is they put a high flow Stably dry brake system on the hose. So in terms of installation, what you do is you let the gas pressure out, you disconnect the hose, you feed the hose through the hole, so you only make a small diameter hole for the hose to go through, connect it back up, regas the strut, and you're basically good to go. So it also helps with if you do have an accident and by chance you actually damage the actual body or the hose gets crushed for whatever reason, you don't have to replace the whole hose, and often it makes the repair of the shock a lot easier as well. It is an option, and the dry brake fittings aren't cheap, but they do not affect the internal efficiency of the shock, so the hysteresis doesn't get worse, but that's the price you pay for really high quality items. One other feature I'd like to chat about is the fact that the actual brackets are actually welded to the actual outer tube. So with a lot of cheaper brands out there on the market, often these brackets are actually adjustable on the tube, so the thread goes all the way down. What we've seen in racing, especially at tracks where they've got a lot of high curb action and the drivers basically use the curbs to get speed out of the car, often what happens is the actual outer tube bends because the thread goes all the way down and you've got a large nut where the adjustment is. So two problems there. One, the body is aluminium, and two, the wall thickness is not strong enough at all, especially when it comes to aluminium. So again, going back to strength and reliability, this is a system to have in terms of having the flanges welded to the actual outer body. If you go for an aluminium insert, or even if you had a steel body and adjustable clamp here, it still won't be as strong, and it will actually still be heavier. The other thing is yes, it's a large shaft, but why don't they make them like an inverted cartridge? The problem with the inverted cartridge style is that the large diameter body does create stiction on the actual seal when it actually runs inside the actual tube. So with this sort of system, it's got a large support bearing inside and it's a small seal, so you don't get the stiction. We see it a lot of times when we try and dyno the actual cartridge with the leg on the dyno. It does affect the way the actual shock behaves, and it's really a high maintenance item. It's not something that MCS design and manufacture. This sort of system, same shaft, same body. They use on 911 Porsches that do a lot of rally off-road events. No issues whatsoever. So it's a really good quality, really high quality item. One last item to talk about is the height of this, or the actual full length and droop you will see if this isn't adjustable. In a motorsport scenario, your ride height's usually adjusted at the spring, and basically having that adjustment taken away, that's the only form of mechanism. So people worry about having too much preload on the spring. If you've got the right spring in the car, you won't have too much preload on it, so that won't affect the actual way the car behaves. If you've got the right correct length, open length, so the right amount of droop in the car, you shouldn't need to adjust this. It makes things too confusing and it's not reliable. So again, another high quality product from motion control suspension. If you've got any questions, by all means give us a call or check out our website www.racingchocksaustralia.com.au. We carry spares, we can service the brand here locally. By all means check us out, and thanks for joining us.